Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they release. Today we are still on our 1980s New Line Cinema miniseries. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And today we are talking about The Hidden from 1987. But joining us is a super special guest, first time on here, but we've had his, is it okay if I call him better half, or is that...
Sure, why not?
No? Okay.
Yeah.
But no, we have half of the B-side. It is Conor O'Donnell. How are you, sir?
I am great. Thank you for having me. I don't think I've been a guest before on other podcasts. I don't think I've ever been a super special guest, so...
Don't listen to any other episodes where I call everybody a super special guest, but you know what? For today, it's very special.
I'm going to take that home with me
yeah.
and enjoy it, so thank you.
The next person, I'm just like, we have a... Yeah, they're all right guest.
Yeah. We have a pretty fucking middling guest. Perfectly average, unremarkable guest.
But yes, we are talking about The Hidden from 1987. This was released wide on 1,045 theaters. I think this might be the first movie we've covered this miniseries that actually went wide, because I'm pretty sure all the rest of them are just like, I barely know what date this came out. I know it made like $5, but this one actually went wide. It debuted at number 6 at the box office on October 30th in 1987. The budget was $5 million. Opening weekend did $2.4 million, and a domestic and overall gross of $9.7 million. Top 5 films that weekend is Fatal Attraction, Baby Boom, Suspect, which is a Peter Yates movie, and I'm not very privy to that. And oh god, we've got Fatal Beauty as well. This whole weekend is just fatal everything. That's the Tom Holland Whoopi Goldberg movie, which we all know. And then number 5 is Prince of Darkness, which kicks ass.
Oh, yeah.
This
So good.
One of
is
Carpenter's
a pretty
best.
dope weekend.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, pretty good. Like, you could walk out of this and go into Prince of Darkness or vice versa and have, like, a really good time. Like, a really good day.
Yeah. I was just thinking
I think
Halloween double feature if this was on the 30th of October.
This is one of those movies that, feels like if it came out now, it would, like, destroy. Like, people would, like, absolutely love it. Like,
Yeah.
and I guess you said it cost $5 million? How much did you say?
Plus 5, it had made about 10. So,
yeah,
I mean...
so okay. So it made its money back. So people liked it then, too. But
Yeah.
Yeah, although I was talking to my mom, like I watched this with my parents last night. I'd seen it, they had not seen it. My mom was like, she was like in her 30s when this, like, in like the 80s and everything. She was like, I don't remember hearing anything about this movie and everything. And she was like, what's this movie about and everything? Like, she was, although she did like very quickly go like, is Kyle MacLachlan an alien and everything? She's like, is he an alien? And I was
she's
just
like slowly remembering things, maybe. Like,
yeah. And also I forgot Prince of Darkness. They were both The Hidden and Prince of Darkness were on Criterion Channel's 80s horror programming that they did like back in 2022, which is where I both watched these. So very cool.
Hell yeah.
And Fatal Attraction. Have we talked about Fatal Attraction on the pod at all? How do we feel about Fatal Attraction?
I don't know if we talked about Ann Archer shooting Glenn Close, but
Yeah, we have. Oh dear.
I kind of like it. I mean, it's problematic.
yeah, I
as
haven't
fuck, but
haven't
it's
watched
kinda
it
fun.
in years. We did an erotic thrillers episode last year.
Right, with
and
Karina Longworth, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
Thank you. And that I did not rewatch that one though. I watched like a whole bunch of other ones. So it's been a few years since I went back. Maybe I'll watch that tonight.
Did you watch Sliver?
We covered Sliver.
Yeah,
I still need to watch Sliver.
Sliver is fucking nuts.
yeah, man.
We covered Sliver and Jade.
I need to watch
Jade
Jade.
is bonkers.
Jade is
Can you imagine doing a double feature of Jade and Sliver? Your brain would
I
fucking
certainly
scanner
can
style
because
explode.
I certainly can because I watched them both back to back in a single night.
That gave you like 30 extra days of life. Good job.
Now I'm just thinking about fucking David Caruso saying it's a fuck house. Anyway, sorry.
I'm thinking about Sliver having maybe one of the best indie lines of all time. Just get a life. Credits. Movie doesn't. Oh man, that movie's fucking nuts. Joel Esterhaus. What a just man.
Strange.
What if that guy was still going?
Yeah.
Anyways, Whoopi Goldberg movie Fatal Beauty. I don't think that was an erotic thriller.
I was about to say, do you think there was lots of confusion of like people buying tickets to the wrong movie?
That would be very
Seems
funny.
honestly like a great move.
Did you see Fatal Attraction? Yeah, I
Yeah.
watched it. And they're just talking about, when she boiled that bunny and whatnot, they were just like, Whoopi Goldberg didn't do that.
Right.
I don't remember.
I mean, we had Women Talking and The Quiet Girl at the same time at the Coolidge, and people got those two mixed up. So I can't even imagine. Like,
Hey, are they talking here or are they quiet here?
one ticket for that girl needs to shut up. Like,
What's better, Fatal Attraction or Swim Fan? Don't think, just say it.
Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction.
Damn it!
Yeah. Sorry.
Which one have we covered on the pod? Exactly, Swim Fan wins. Okay, number one song in the U.S. this week is Bad by Michael Jackson. Number one song in Canada this week is Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. Hell yeah. I feel like you could plug in Here I Go Again at the start of The Hidden, when after he gets out, he's driving the Ferrari.
I was thinking to myself while rewatching this, like the soundtrack kind of rules in this movie.
Yeah.
It's got like Streets of Rage energy. Like it's got
little
like
bit, yeah.
Like, and I know it like predates the Sega Genesis, but it just feel like there's so much in this that I just felt like
Oh man,
I don't
That's
know,
a great
like,
comparison. I haven't.
I
played
was
that game in
talking
ages.
with Mitchell Beaupre on like Twitter DMs, and we were talking about movies that like have video game energy but aren't video game movies, right? Like Dread or Crank, or like Crank is like literally a movie about like what if you had to play Grand Theft Auto and everyone was trying to stop you, but if you stopped playing Grand Theft Auto, you would die, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like The Hidden just kind of has some of that weird energy where it just has like this.
It's like you face a boss, you kill the boss,
Yeah,
but then the boss
like
gets
just got this like
reborn.
fucking weird
Yeah.
bonkers energy to it that I feel like you could only find in like comic books and video games at the end of the 80s and like into the 90s.
I mean, the opening shot, which is insane and gave me chills and prepared me tonally for something different that what it ends up being is still awesome. I guess you could imagine that as an opening shot of like a video game before the title screen comes up, Like,
yeah, it's it's so. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I jumped over your table setting, so I don't mean to do that.
Oh,
but,
you're fine.
I mean, we can just
But you
talk
just
about
mentioned
Genesis
White
games.
Snake as a needle drop, and I kind of was like, yeah. I mean, it would have fit right in.
Well, I was saying to Kevin before you joined, we did before we did our New Line miniseries. We started New Line. We did the Jet Li movie where
Sure.
he's like you got like the multiple versions, and there's a scene in that where Jet Li he's like listening to the radio while he's driving. It's evil Jet Li, and he's like listening to some like soft rock music, and he doesn't like it. Then he turns to a new metal station, and he starts like rocking his head to it. And there's a similar scene at the start of the Hidden where Chris Bulky's like tapping
also
his
has video
tapping his
game
steering wheel.
energy. That's like a
Yes.
non-video game movie.
Totally. I think I
Yeah.
said on that episode, it's like Hulk Ultimate Destruction, where you're just like destroying stuff, like hitting people with like street
Yeah.
lamps or whatever, and like.
Well, they did make a Jet Li game around that time.
Rise
but
of
it was-
Honor, yes.
yeah,
Which I
Rise
didn't
of
talk
Honor.
about on the episode. Yeah, I
Yeah.
played the demo of that a bunch as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. There's got to be a letterbox list that's just like big video game energy, and I just got to go down that.
Yeah,
And
big
then-
big VG energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any of y'all seen Gamer? That movie sucks.
That movie is not good, but it's kind of fun in a holy shit kind of way. Like,
I was like 16, 17 when that came out. I was like 09 or something. I was in the theater, and I was just like, this is so juvenile.
oh,
and I was
it's
like
insanely
16.
juvenile. It's pretty
like-
vile. Yeah.
I feel like as someone who, for my palate cleansers lately, I've really taken to movies like I rewatched Crank recently, and that
Hell yeah.
certainly fits in that camp. But like in my head, I was just like, "There's something about this that's so comforting."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But so I don't know if Gamer
Can
would
you
hold up.
watch Crank not on like a PSP? Like, can you watch that on a television? That's wild.
Isn't the guy, and the actor's name escapes me, but the gentleman he's like the partner in this. He's also the dude in the club in Lethal Weapon who they intimidate by.
Charlie was just talking about him. Emma Ross,
Yes.
right? He's the partner of Willis who gets turned in.
Yeah. Thank you. He's like very prominent on the poster, right? It's like,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of
Yes.
funny because it's in a way where you're like, oh, that dude's the bad guy, and he's not. Like he just. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess he sort of is for like 45 seconds or whatever, but just because of the nature of the movie. But I just remember thinking like, oh yeah, that I could see that dude being like a good maniac. This was when I first watched it like years ago. So when Kevin even like brought it up, I was like, hell yeah. Like, and I kind of watched it then like sight unseen, but I do remember thinking that dude would have made like a great maniac. And then I wasn't disappointed, but I was kind of confused. I was like, so when is that guy gonna start killing everybody? And he kind of only pops up for like 45 seconds near the end. But
plot description from Google: a homicide detective and an FBI agent team up to find the human host of an alien life form responsible for turning citizens into homicidal maniacs. Sign me up. Written by Jim Koff. Apparently there was like, Brian, you'll probably talk about this. There was like some kind of discrepancy with the writer didn't kind of want his name on it, and then by the end of it, he did.
Because he wanted to direct it initially. This was a long interview, I think, that I read with Jack Shoulder on Horror Obsessive from 5 years ago that Andrew Grovis conducted. Shoulder says, it's written by Jim Kroof, wanted to direct it, and he had taken it around all over Hollywood, and nobody wanted to make it. He took it to New Line, and they said, well, we'll make the film, but we don't want you to direct it, which seems kind of harsh. He pretty much said, fine, I'll just study the script, and I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to take a pseudonym as the writer, and is the name like that he takes on like the script? It's like Bob someone. I don't remember, but but then like Jack Shoulder said, and then says like, of course now he's gone back to putting his real name on the film, and like Shoulder like revised the script, and, and all that stuff. But I think he's like talking about like that's sort of like how he would he'd do stuff, like he'd help people with editing and like script stuff. Shoulder would, but yeah,
he's credited as Bob Hunt.
There you go, Bob. I was right. It was Bob someone.
Is that a common pseudonym?
I don't know. Bob, I'm sure it is. They're just like, I don't know who wrote this. I don't know.
So like the
Bob
Alan
something.
Smithy of screenplays,
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Alan Smithy, I'm pretty sure Supernova, that was the last time. There was the first time when they're just like, no, you can't use Alan Smithy anymore. That's too noticeable. And I forget what the director's name on it was, on that fucking horrendous movie. But
wait, isn't that Jack Shoulder as well? Hold on.
Oh shit, I think it might actually be, because what was it?
Walter Hill
dropped out. Francis Ford Coppola dropped out. And then
and you're like, who finished the movie?
He shot reshoots. I'm seeing this on Wikipedia. Jack Shoulder was hired for a substantial uncredited reshoots, and then Coppola was brought in for editing.
Yeah, right.
Oh wow!
There we go. Wow.
And was Coppola the one that took the CG scene and basically did CGI blackface on Angela Bassett? Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay.
What?
There's real quick. There's a from a distance space station sex scene where you can like and it's supposed to be between Angela Bassett and Spader, right? I think, yeah. And it was originally between Robin Tunney and Peter Fasinelli,
or Lou Diamond Phillips. I think it might be Lou Diamond Phillips.
Maybe. Yeah. But the point is, Tunney had a close enough short haircut to Bassett that that's what the CG render was for. And then they decided they needed to make it a sex scene between Bassett and Spader instead. So in post, they just made Tunney black.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And it's I mean, you wouldn't ever know, frankly, because it's like from so far away.
It's already like in the dark.
And like through this window in the space station. And you see them like floating in zero G having sex. That's like the appeal of the scene. It's this giant glass like.
Also, while watching that movie, even if you were concerned about that, that would be like your 4,000th concern.
Sure.
Before all that,
it is one of those things.
Who are these people? I don't care.
You're like, that's kind of a weird, bad CGI shot. And then I was like reading about it, and I'm like, oh, that's insane. That's actually insane. Supernova. What a
watch it on Tubi at the gym the way you're supposed to. But Jim Koff, he prior to this wrote The Boogans in 1981, which I need to watch because why would you not want to watch a movie called The Boogans? After this, wrote Rush Hour in 1998, and in 2004 wrote National Treasure and Taxi, because that's the duality of men right there. And
those are movies that were very popular in my household when I was growing up. Taxi I saw so many times.
I saw that as a cam rip two-parter on LimeWire back in the day, and that's how it should say.
I went to a birthday party to see Taxi. We were like
What are we
13.
doing?
I
Just
don't know.
lining the
It was
pockets
really
of Tim
disappointed
Story.
when you showed up and it wasn't the Judd Hirsch show. You were like, oh God, I thought we were just gonna like sit down and watch incredible episodes of this amazing comedy.
Or I thought this was that French movie from the late 90s or whatever. Yeah. He also wrote Money Monster in 2016 because hell yeah, he did.
Saw it in theaters.
I saw
Yeah,
that in
man.
theaters,
Money
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And he created the show Grimm from 2011 to 2017.
Oh wow, I didn't know he created that.
Didn't we have
I mean-
somebody who was involved in Grimm?
What do we
Or
think?
was-
What are the residuals on Grimm like?
Probably a lot. Let me ask my dad. Let me see if he's watched Grimm. Hold on.
I mean, I guess that's not that surprising that he created it. I mean, it is like kind of a similar genre mashup where it's like, cop procedural with like,
With
fantastical
like crazy shit.
murder
in it.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
cop
Yeah.
procedural? I don't know why my brain just went to, was that like when Once Upon a Time was big or something? Like,
Or like
Basically.
Lucifer was another show where it's like, what if Satan
Sure,
solved
right.
crimes?
Yeah.
yeah.
Damn it, I'm trying to there was somebody that we covered that like basically did nothing afterwards and then did like a 9-year run on like an NBC show in like the 2010s, and I can't think of it, but it wasn't Grimm, I don't think, but it was something very similar. It'll come to me. Directed by Jack Shoulder. We talked about him all in the episode of Alone in the Dark, so go listen to that. Starring Kyle MacLachlan as Lloyd Gallagher. That's a fake alien ass name. Prior to this, Dune in 1984 and Blue Velvet in 1986, and this is his third performance, which is nuts to me. After this,
Yeah.
Twin Peaks, of course, and Showgirls in 1995, Hamlet in 2000, and Portlandia. Lots of episodes of Portlandia.
Yeah. That's crazy to me that this was his third role. Blue Velvet was his second. That's also crazy to me.
Honestly, what an incredible 1-2 punch. Good
I
for
know.
him.
I mean, yeah. And in Blue Velvet, he looks like 14 years old, so
He
that
kind
makes
of
sense.
looks
That it's
15 years old in this, so
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm an FBI agent. And you're like, aren't
like,
you?
"Aren't
You're an
Well, they
FBI
make a
agent.
quip about that. The FBI bureau is getting them younger and younger
yeah,
these
it's like,
days.
Oh, yeah,
you
that's
sure
right,
You're
that's
not
right.
3 Kyle MacLachlans standing on top of each other in a suit. Anyway,
And Michael Nouri as Tom Beck. Prior to this, Flashdance in 1983. Will this movie please stop fucking get brought up on this fucking podcast? And after this, Lovely and Amazing in 2001. Listen to our episode on that. Connor, what is your opinion on Flashdance? Because I'm a big, that movie sucks ass opinion.
you reacted in a way like Flashdance killed your whole family, but
Kind of did. I was going through like, which,
I haven't
Fatal Attraction,
seen it
same
since,
guy. But
I haven't seen it since I was a kid. One of my sisters really loved that movie, and I remember it being on. So I actually can't even say with confidence I've actually watched it all the way through.
what if a woman could weld, but she also wanted to dance?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that.
Okay. What else happens in that movie? I don't know. I really
Nuri's
don't
also
know.
like 20 years older than Jennifer Beals in that movie or something. It's like a big age gap, I feel like.
Well, Jennifer Beals in that movie is like welding, and she's like 14. You're just like, God damn.
Well, the welding adds like 10 years too. So it's really the minute you're a welder,
How old are you? 19. You look a lot older.
right. The minute you have welding miles on you.
What if Benjamin
really-
Button was a welder? He was a welder on that fucking
My
Irish
husband
ass
did a
boat.
flash dance. That's just one of the many careers he did.
What a feeling. Yeah. Trivia. Brian, you did some research on The Hidden, so let's see. What do you got?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're talking about Kyle MacLachlan. One of the alternate people that they were thinking of casting was Peter Gallagher, which I feel like that would be like I think he's a really good actor, but I feel like that would be like a completely different feel. I feel like Gallagher is like maybe a little too slippery to play a guy who's like so
I
earnest.
feel like Gallagher could play the straight man in this.
Yeah.
He could be the
sure.
Michael
Yeah, that would've been
Nouri.
good.
Or
Yeah.
the villain, or like the villain at some point. Like,
He could have voiced the dog.
I feel like if Gallagher was, and to be clear, we're talking about the comedian, the watermelon comedian Gallagher.
Oh, that would kick ass.
If Gallagher was no, but
Instead
I
of
think
an alien gun, he just has a massive mallet.
that's kind of where this movie goes anyway, in terms of like levels of weaponry that get used. But no, I think if Peter Gallagher, were the MacLachlan role, I think he'd have to play it in a way where you're not entirely sure if he's like on the level. Like, whereas like, and granted, I also might be like coming at it from like what I know and think of Kyle MacLachlan, you know, going into the movie, where you're like, oh yeah, he's so good at playing a little weirdo, but like a nice one, you know, like it's like that's his energy. And so you're kind of already, but I never for once in this movie believe Kyle MacLachlan poses any kind of a threat, right? Whereas I feel like if it was Peter Gallagher, you'd be like,
That would also be funny if Peter Gallagher showed up and they were like, man, they get younger and younger these days. Like,
yeah, I guess how old would Gallagher have been, right? I don't like.
Yeah.
That's a good question. But like they didn't want to cast. I just found a quote. It was from this interview I got from the site is called Horror Obsessive, where they didn't want to. New Line didn't want to cast MacLachlan because they thought he looked too wimpy. But Shoulder said like, no, it's that underdog quality that makes you root for him in the movie. And I was
think that's correct. I think that's the right instinct.
When they made this, had Blue Velvet come out yet?
Yeah.
I know that like it had like so like they had seen Blue Velvet.
I mean, yeah, that didn't really help their case though.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. Be like, how does he go from discovering ears to being like an alien?
Because Blue Velvet is like the most twisted, fucked up, like sexual coming of age story you could possibly imagine from that character's perspective.
But he's got the same wimpy energy in both movies. In a way that helps, I think.
Yeah. Even he gets a little upsetting and towards the end of Blue Velvet where he loses his innocence. But yeah.
Peter Gallagher was 32 at the time of The Hidden.
Okay. Yeah.
God,
Yeah,
Peter
so he just would have been like a guy.
Yeah.
He would have been
The Hidden
me.
just
I'm
had a guy?
32.
Well, meanwhile, at 32, Peter Gallagher looked like 55 probably. Let me see.
It's the eyebrows. It's the eyebrows of Peter Gallagher for me. Like, there's something about... And I say this as also a guy with very thick eyebrows. Like, there's just something about it that... Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have anything to say about Peter Gallagher's stint on SVU? Apparently, he was a big recurring role in SVU.
No, for whatever reason, all I can think about with Peter Gallagher right now is Sex, Lies, and Videotape and him chopping up Frances McDormand's couch in Shortcuts.
He is also the star of the only thing Tom Cruise ever directed, which is an episode of Fallen Angels called Frightening Framus.
I need to watch those.
It's with him and Nancy Travis, I believe.
Interesting.
So, for whatever that's worth.
I need to watch that. I think Mecca was talking about he found like a VHS of that back in the day.
No,
it was
not
like
found. I, as a Christmas gift one year, gifted him with a VHS copy that had the Frightening Framus on it and a VCR so he could watch it.
That is wonderfully inspired.
Open a VHS. This is great, but how am I going to watch it? You have one more gift underneath the... Oh, man! Yeah. Brian, continue.
Yes, Shoulder talks about in the Flashback Files interview that I did, which he did like in the 2020s, so like it's a fairly recent interview, and it's a long interview, kind of going through his whole career. He talks about how he said Michael Nouri was kind of difficult to work with, like how he felt like Nouri said, like I think he said Nouri felt insecure was the word that he used because he felt like he should have had a bigger career. I think Nuri's good in this, but like we were talking, I think, before we started recording, how like I think Nuri has a bit of a tough role where he is the straight man, but I think his reactions to MacLachlan's like sort of straight-faced manner dealing with all this insanity in the movie is like I think is quite good. Yeah. He's very understated throughout a lot of the movie, I think, until then like he has like the proper.
If this movie were the only piece of evidence to back up Nuri's claim about his career, I would agree with him. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, because watching it, he's like got charisma, he's got screen presence. Like you said, he has the perfect. He's like, they are like a really good buddy cop pairing in that regard. Like they have really good chemistry. In a way that I kind of was like, yeah, this guy like never really popped off. Like he's good in this. He's very handsome, right? Like, so you're kind of just like, what's the deal? But I feel like also, the minute you are dealing with someone who has that chip on their shoulder, you're like, oh, that's the deal. That's like your problem.
Bryden, real quick, I found out who is involved with Grimm. So it was co-created by Jim Croft. It was also co-created by a man named David Greenwalt, and also co-created by a man named Stephen Carpenter, the director of Soul Survivors. That's right.
Oh.
All roads lead back.
That's fucking right. Now we just got to find something to cover with David Greenwalt. Yeah.
All right.
I damn near screamed on the mic when I found out. I was like, damn it, I know it's Grimm.
That's so funny.
Okay.
When Shoulder was doing Shoulder, also he wanted to do the hit, and he talked about how he didn't want to. So like before this, he did Nightmare on Elm Street 2. He didn't want to be a horror guy. Like he said, he seems kind of like. I mean, I wonder almost now. He's probably not an online guy and everything, but like he like I imagine like is Shoulder the kind of guy like who would talk about like elevated horror and everything, because like he talks about how like Alone in the Dark it's not really like a horror film, it's more like an art film and everything. Like he was talking about that, and
now it's a horror film, man.
Yeah, and like Wes Craven, he said like Wes Craven was like much better like expressing himself like through the horror film. I express myself in spite of the horror film, I think is like the phrase that he used in like at least a couple of interviews, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean,
Wes Craven is also the guy that was just like, I don't want to make horror movies, and I try to not make horror movies. I try to make them like art films and whatnot. It's just like, okay, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. Both really good directors.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with it, but like it's just like sort of like, okay. But he did The Hidden because like he was like, oh great, like it's not a horror script. Great, I'll take it. He said also he wanted to like do a cop movie and everything. Like he's talked about like he likes Sidney Lumet movies, and also how he wanted to do also a car. I mean, it's not.
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of Sidney Lumet's The Hidden. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just legit like. It's like the early version of when people would say about like Spider-Man: Homecoming, like, oh, it's like a John Hughes movie. It's like, is it, or is it just in high school? Kind of thing. And it's like that sort of this. It's like a Sidney Lumet movie, and you're like, I guess whatever you got to tell yourself, Jack Shoulder. Like if that's what's going to get you through the workday.
What if like The Hidden? I mean, I know there is a direct-to-video sequel of The Hidden, but what if The Hidden 2 was like a Sidney Lumet movie where it's like the court case dealing with all this stuff? I know the aliens dead, but it's like
so you're saying my client shot them 47 times?
12 Angry Men just ends with one of them just like the alien just comes out of one of them while they slam the knights down. Yeah.
He also really wanted to do. He talked also about how in researching how to do like a car chase, like specifically the opening, he had like someone get him like a bunch of car chases, like just so he could see like how to do one really well. He talked about French Connection being a really good one.
It's a decent car chase.
Yeah,
It's a cool little thing.
And Walter, and he compares it differently. He compares it to like Walter Hill with like how he shoots like The Driver, which is another car chase movie that he cites. Like he says, Walter likes to shoot like the scenes with the telephoto lens. You're looking at the chase from the outside. What I wanted to do was put the audience in the driver's car, which I think is like it does lend you that sort of like immediacy right there, especially when like he's like driving through the plate of glass and like just demolishing that guy, that poor bastard.
Yeah.
Working in the street, yeah.
Don't you hate it when somebody's like just fucking on a fucking high speed chase and you're just trying to move some window pane? You know, it's just that old thing.
Don't you hate when you own a? Let me check my notes. A mannequin store and someone just completely obliterates the front of it.
Then Elijah Wood comes out and is like, "Hey, what the fuck?" Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting we talk about like the stuff. His next movie after The Hidden. He talks about how like he kind of did this movie Renegades, which is another buddy action movie with Kiefer Sutherland and Lou Diamond Phillips.
Sure, yeah.
And he says that it seems like the way he talks about that was more kind of a money job where he was expecting opportunities to come in, and then they kind of started to cool down. He's like, okay, I kind of just need to like make a movie to like make something. Yeah. And then but he did try to like find some innovation. Like there's a car chase in that movie where like it's like starts out where they're kind of like starts out on foot, then they're in like a traffic jam, which weirdly made me think of the scene in Jade, which we were talking about, where like they're like stuck in the middle of the parade. Yeah. And that's also funny too, where like and he's like trying to, and he's when he was doing the car chase, he's asked this stunt guy, he says he said to the stunt guy Mickey Gilbert, asked him, is there anything you always wanted to do in a car chase that you never got to do? And there were two things: the moment where the car drives straight through the office and obliterates it. The other was a stunt where our car drives up a ramp into a semi-truck and comes out the other end, and we incorporated both of those. And we were talking about driving through the plate glass, and during the Renegades chase, it made me think of Ebert's fruit cart rule, where it's like movies and like where like a car like drives over someone's fruit cart in like the middle of the street, and like the guy's like running after him, like shaking his fist. There's like a scene in Renegades where during that car chase, I think Sutherland just like drives through like every vendor on like the street, just ruining people's businesses.
What was that? It was just cans. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, mean, The Hidden, like, I mean, I think it's one of those movies where, like, it is a cult movie where, like, it gets good reviews at the time. I mean, Charlie, you shared with me, like, in the chat, like, this was like a hidden, it was Ebert highlighted it on a Hidden Horrors episode of Siskel and Ebert, which is how I first heard about the movie, watching that video when I was in high school. And it is, like, one where, like, I think it gets, like, a lot of, like, rep screenings now. Like, I think one of the interviews I was reading from, like, 2018, it was, like, they're doing, like, an Alamo Drafthouse screening of it in New York that, like, Shoulder was going to be attending. So, like, it's nice that the movie has that life that's, like, sort of lived on.
Totally, yeah,
since.
totally.
Yeah.
It's deserved. It's like just a nice, zippy, gross, cool little fun banger with a good dog performance.
Hold on. Let me get into initial thoughts because I got about 57 minutes to go on about that dog.
I want this car.
Jonathan Miller would never do anything to break the law.
I need the keys. Thank you. Bye.
He is a very fine, very honest gentleman.
Something strange is happening to some ordinary people.
Killed 12 people, wounded 23 more, stole 6 cars, most of them Ferraris. If anybody deserves to go that way, sure in the hell's him.
I want answers, and I want them now.
Explanation won't help you.
Now I want to know why it takes 15 shots to take down some zoned-out stripper. Why 3 law-abiding citizens all of a sudden go crazy and start killing people.
We talking spacemen here? Something gets in his way, he kills it. Finds a body, gets inside, uses it to move around. I guess a career in the police didn't really prepare you for this, did it?
The Hidden.
You think it's over now? You're wrong.
Initial thoughts, I will go really fast because I really don't have much to say other than my notes are just me saying hell yeah 58 times, so I'll just condense that into one. But it's not really a spoiler to say that this movie is about an alien that can take many different forms, and eventually at one time it gets into a dog, and the dog acting in this just puts to shame the dog acting in Anatomy of a Fall. I'm very sorry, but
Well, hey, justice for Snoop, okay?
Wait. I like
is there
how
any
you-
aliens in that movie? No, there's not. But
What if?
like, oh,
what
did
if-
my husband die?
See,
This has aliens.
Now we've gotten something interesting. What if the alien from The Hidden actually was in Snoop, and then the alien killed the
that's
husband?
why Snoop threw up. That's why Snoop threw up.
Okay.
And then the alien also possessed that prosecutor who was on all the cocaine in France, apparently.
Right, yeah.
I just love how he's just like, do you know that the song PIMP is actually a very misogynistic, but it was like, no, this was actually an instrumental cover, and I was just like, why is this movie 2.5 hours long?
They also included that in part of the Golden Globes clip at one point. Like, you can
Really?
hear it.
Actually, the biggest sin that the Golden Globes committed is that they didn't use PIMP as Justine Trier's walk-on music when
Walk-up
she won
music.
her awards, because that really would have been the move.
You gotta
I know,
do that,
and she
yeah.
won
Yeah,
2
it's
awards.
really, you get one chance at that. Why would you not?
But yeah, there's a shot in this movie that I was like, I damn near choked to death because there's a part where the dog is just looking into the mirror, like, what body am I in? And it made me laugh.
Yeah, that shot is incredible.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect. The dog is having like an existential crisis.
That's pretty great. And then it's just like, this guy's opening the fridge. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna bust through a fucking door, make him hit his head on the fridge, and kill him.
So I do,
And then I'm
have
gonna vomit in his mouth.
I know that this all happens later in the movie. It happens after the mannequin factory and the stripper shootout. Comes near the end of the movie, right? Mm-hmm. But when the dog comes into play, right? And I guess just to quickly, the mechanics of this thing for the listener, and again, you can't really have this movie completely spoiled for you because it's, I don't know, it's insane and you should watch it and it's great. But basically, there's like a little bug man who is the antagonist of the film, who is like hopping from body to body. And Kyle MacLachlan is after this little bug man and has teamed up with a local LAPD detective to help him. McLaughlin's posing as a Fed as they go through all this whole buddy cop ordeal. But the only time McLaughlin can kill it is when it's in between bodies, right? When it's in its whatever, and it's like pure form or whatever. So I did have a question. So there's a dead body. The bug man leaves and it finds the dog. But the dog belongs to the police lieutenant. Right? That's how it walks away from the crime scene.
Yeah.
Why is the dog there?
There was supposed to be a scene, they said in the commentary, there was supposed to be a scene that they cut out where it was just like it showed the dog being in the car and like coming with him and whatnot. But he was just like, who cares? The dog's there. And I was just like,
he was taking him out for a nightly walk or something.
Because the way it's cut in the movie, it looks like no one's there yet, and the dog finds the body. Like the dog is a stray dog. And then you don't see the person the dog walks away with, and the dog is on a leash. And you're kind of like, oh, I guess that was somebody's dog.
So I think I remember the trajectory of the scene, like, because I think you hear the sirens approaching when Michael Nuri's like hanging on the roof and everything, and then I think you do, and then like you see like a lot of other cars show up, and I think Lieutenant, like he's like his dog gets away from him, like he has like the dog in the car, and he's like, hey, come back, and then like. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
It's very quick, and that's why McLaughlin's so distraught. He's like, no, it was only a matter of seconds.
Second dog mechanic question.
Okay.
When the dog jumps at him, it jumps from the outside of his apartment?
Yeah.
So the dog decided, I'm not just going to go into the kitchen and attack this guy, because he's already in the apartment having the existential crisis in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
Then the lieutenant
Then he opens the door himself.
Yes, like a velociraptor, right? Just to be clear. Yes. Like a Jurassic Park velociraptor. He opens the door. Very impressive. But he has the existential crisis, goes to kill the lieutenant, but like decides like, I'm going to go outside and really fuck with this guy. Like he like almost.
I have the answer for you. Yeah, because it's cool.
No. I have no problem with it, and it works as a jump scare because you do not expect the dog to come in through the like the door behind him or whatever, the window. I'm just, I want to know the dog's thoughts and feelings about like that strategy. Like,
I don't think we put the dog on trial here. We put the alien embryo or whatever the fuck that thing is. That little chest burster guy. Charlie, you were right. That guy's a little stinker. Let me tell you. Yeah.
My dad said he looked like a snail, which I thought was a good comparison. Yeah.
Like a slug. Yeah, sure.
I will also say when I started this movie, it was late at night, and I audibly said, "Oh, gross!" And my roommate went, "What?" And I came into my room, and I'm like, "Check this out, it's disgusting." And he went, "No,
it is disgusting. It's great, like that. The practical effects for especially that first sequence, and we should talk about the opening of this movie because it actually is like unreal. It's so good. The beginning of this movie, it's security cam footage of basically a figure going into a bank and killing everybody, right? And then at the very end of that sequence, this unnamed person looks up and shoots the camera, and like that's
smiles too.
It gives this like lifeless smile. And shoots the camera, and that's the end. And it's harrowing and insane and great. And you're like, what is this movie?
Yeah, it actually gave me chills and made me think, holy shit, and kind of teased a little more of a sinister, chilling movie than we got. But then the next scene happens where he gets in the car and the rock music plays and he drives through the plate of glass. I'm like, oh no, okay, this is gonna be fun.
It's the kind of movie where, I don't know, it just feels like the kind of movie, at least for the first like 30 minutes, it feels like the kind of movie where you could say to someone, you might think you know exactly what's going to happen next, but there's no way you're correct, right? Like, so even like after that opening sequence and after the plate glass scene where they get the guy who's kind of going crazy doing this rampage, you might think like, oh, okay, so this guy's like out of his mind. Maybe he's a zombie. Like you could go through all the things in your head of like, oh yeah, I don't know, he's like zonked out or he's on some drugs or whatever. And there's just no way you would guess that there's a little slug man inside of him pulling the strings. Like,
God, and the practical effects whenever he first does that to the guy in the bed.
Yeah, it's incredible. So it's really amazing. And like
it can't even fit in his mouth at
it's
first.
So great. Yeah. And like, so basically just for the listener, there's, the guy that they capture, right? He's going on the rampage. He gets out of bed. He goes to the guy who's in the bed next to him in the hospital. and he just opens his mouth and our little friend comes out. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. I remember when I watched it a couple of years ago when it was on Criterion Channel, I was like, oh yeah, that's like really impressive. Right. And I don't think I like fully wrap my head around like, oh no, this is like, I want to vomit. This is so gross, but it's like incredible.
It kind of looks like The Thing a little bit with those tentacles too.
Yes,
like if the
right.
Thing
It's
was
got the little
combined
tubes. Do we think the little tubes are a part of it, or do we think those are like some sort of apparatus that it uses as its little puppet strings?
It's like when Plankton like needs to maneuver
it does
things.
look like Plankton.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It does kind of look like Plankton.
Yeah.
It's all after the Krabby Patty secret formula.
Yeah. Somebody should just take all the scenes from The Hidden where we see our little slug friend and just dub in Plankton over
That
like.
would be amazing too if you just see a little plankton guy like inside the human body is just a bunch of levers that he's just
That's kind of that's what I want to know. Like, what are the actual mechanics of him like puppeteering this fucking thing? I will say this: I don't think the sex in this movie is queer enough because like he takes over the body of a stripper. And then you're kind of like, I guess this alien is a straight man, because like,
or maybe it has no gender. Like, did they call it it?
Yeah,
like,
maybe. Yeah,
and the stripper does have a moment when he's in the stripper's body. The stripper is kind of like,
he's like, I have boobs. Like, this is cool, right?
Yeah,
and that's fine. But it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. Maybe this alien has an appreciation for the human form because like all the dudes it takes over are kind of chuds, but like. So I guess if it took over like a male model, maybe it would be like, oh yeah, like, you know, like, so maybe it would be the same thing, but
I mean, I just kind of appreciated the fact that it was just like, it does kind of a subversion of like, you know, the alien is now in, you know, a body that could be easily weaponized in a patriarchal society, and instead he completely weaponizes it by being like, I'm gonna fuck this creep to death and steal his car. Like
it really does. All the alien just gets into every body that looks like Robert John Burke and thinner. Oh man, I watched that movie. That movie is fucking terrible, dude. Like jail sentences for everybody involved. Terrible. Okay, that's all my initial thoughts. So
yeah, this movie rules.
No, initial thoughts about Thinner from 1996.
I haven't seen it.
Don't watch it.
I want to. Just
is that? Does he get gypsy cursed in that?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
What's
jail.
the proper?
Jail.
Yeah, like I mean, look, the proper term is Romani, I guess, but that wouldn't make it better in the movie. That'd still be a shitty stereotype to play into.
Yeah.
No, and it's
right?
literally
like
we need to kill them because they cursed me. Meanwhile, he was too busy getting Toppy in the car and just ran over this like 105-year-old man that like cursed him, and now he's just like, God, this guy sucks. And it's like, no, you suck. Like, you suck so bad. And it ends with him willingly murdering his wife and kids to get the curse out of him.
What?
Oh. Yeah.
That sounds like some Stephen King shit.
Oh boy.
Anyways, Charlie.
The Hidden fucking slaps. I was, there was a realization too, because, sometimes I have that overly analytical part of my brain that's like, what is this secretly about? Like, what is it getting at? And sometimes it just realizing, the opening, as we talked about, is so propulsive and so kinetic, but also so inspired and so just such a jolt of energy that I was like, okay, well, like the alien, like what is this thing secretly going to be about with the switching bodies and stuff like that? And like, you think about Invasion of the Body Snatchers with, the Red Scare and, 19 and all that stuff. At a certain point, I just surrendered to like thinking about how some movies or artists just steal, and this movie's just stealing from all the best genre movies of the past, and even during its time current state, just to make a really fucking exciting genre picture. I mean, it's the Terminator, it's The Thing, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's
it's like a little bit of 48 hours.
48 hours, yeah. Manchurian Candidate towards the end, I guess. Like, but it doesn't really even have to be about anything. It's just exciting, propulsive genre filmmaking, which sometimes it's just, it's just pure spectacle in a way that I completely admired, and how lean, and there's not an ounce of fat on this thing. It's 91 minutes. Doesn't waste any time explaining what the aliens' motives are, what Kyle MacLachlan's motives are. Or, I mean, it just gives just the right amount of, the slimmest amount of exposition just to basically provide, a thrill ride, which it does so fucking well. And I mean, Connor, you mentioned earlier, if this movie was made today, it would fucking people would go nuts for it. Yeah, I miss this type of just.
Well, the good thing is, it seems like every time that it's on something or anything like that, people are just like, why don't we talk about this movie literally all day, every day?
Yeah.
So
it's had a long shelf life.
It's just made for excitement, and it excels and it succeeds in every level. I mean, it's just fun. It's not, and it provides just the right amount of everything, and what its main priority is to just be kind of wild and exciting, and it's just a fantastic piece of trash, not, and I mean that endearingly, you know what I mean? I guess it's not even when I say trash, I guess that might mean because it's not even as filthy or as it's pretty violent, but not the most disgusting type of. It's just a fun genre exercise that is just the right amount of. It's as a piece of popcorn entertainment. I yearn for the days where movies were made just to be this type of pulp. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I get why you say trash, because it's not going after anything, but I mean, you could, certainly talk about, look, it was made in the 80s, Reaganomics, blah, 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 if you wanted to dive deep into that. But it's just there's nothing, whether it has shit on its mind or it doesn't, there's nothing more rewarding than a movie that sets out to do what it wants to do, and it just fucking does it, and this movie just fucking does it. And
I mean, I'm thinking of other movies that sort of mash up, oh, what if it's a cop movie but mashed up with this other genre? And I can think of so many shitty variations on that. The movie I thought of, it's not the same because it's not aliens, but it's sort of the supernatural element, but R.I.P.D., which sucks,
oh my
and
God.
everything, it's yeah.
So no, I was just gonna say R.I.P.D. came to mind, but that's almost kind of a weird one, because that's you can't tell me, and I know Men in Black is a comic book,
Men in Black
you can't tell me that Barry Sonnenfeld has not seen The Hidden. You know what I mean? Kind of thing, right? That it feels like a direct part of it.
Yeah, the Vincent D'Onofrio character. I mean, it's not as much into the body horror for comic effect all the time. I feel like that's more in the earlier stages of the movie with the earlier victims. But yeah, absolutely. I also
it's got certain little just traces on it of The Hidden.
Yeah, and Men in Black, as fun and nostalgic as fun as that movie is, and as nostalgic as I am for that movie, if anything, the more you get into the lore of that universe, as interesting as it is, the more type of conservative and weirdly it's a different take on this type of material, but I kind of like how just bare bones this whole thing is. So
totally. And I think too, even the beat, you mentioned, it doesn't feel encumbered to be about anything. And what's good about it is because it's so bare bones, not only does it not need to be, and even if you wanted to take the Reagan 80s of it all into it, it's all there anyway, because it's just all there, as just a part of the atmosphere of the movie. So anybody watching it who even wants to find that stuff, it's there in little traces. Even the fact that they I was joking about it before, but they smash into a mannequin factory, there's all this stuff there, whether it's has to do with commercialism, commerce, the way we view women, the fact that the stripper, for instance, is just not and not covered in money because people are throwing it at her, but part of her literal outfit is dollar signs and all this stuff. There's stuff that's there if you want to snack on that stuff.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But the reason the movie succeeds is because it's I don't need it's there if you want it. And I'm just going to be gross and cool and fun.
Exactly. I'm not saying that there's nothing there, because there's stuff there, but it's not prioritized with exposition or hitting you over the head.
Well, it's not trying to be. Yeah, it's like not trying to be cute about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like
It remembers to be exciting too. Like it's not just like sitting down to talk about the ideas. Like it's fun, just like you said, as a genre movie, and it's like it's so well directed. I think too, like so economical and thrilling.
I was, because with Alone in the Dark, where it's much messier, I was kind of shocked watching Alone in the Dark first and being like, oh yeah, I can definitely see that this is a first film, and then going only a few years. And I haven't seen Nightmare on Elm Street 2. We're going to cover it later, since I was a teenager in the closet, where going from the first movie as a 13, 14-year-old to being like, what is this weird second movie that is like a completely different animal altogether? And, me not even appreciating the queer subtext that I myself didn't even want to really explore because of reasons. But to go from my memory of that to this, it's a completely different type of, the direction is just so confident in this, even compared to his previous two films. Like, not that it's not confident in his previous two films, but it's even more self-assured, I guess, if that makes sense.
It's definitely way more developed, and also just has more money. Like, Alone in the Dark is like under $1 million. This is $5 million, and like, goddamn, $5 million. That's it. I mean, inflation and all that, but goddamn.
But it also reminds me too, like, just movies cut so much now, like especially like in just ordinary dialogue scenes, and I just was like, I mean, it's weird, like, to be excited by like, just ordinary dialogue scenes where like you're getting information or anything, but it's just why, like, wow, he's like not cutting or anything, like he's getting so much visual information across and everything just by like keeping the camera and moving it around just a little bit and everything without having to like just a bunch of medium shots and everything, like when they're questioning like the way like McLaughlin will just like come into the foreground of a shot and everything when like you're sitting with people talking for a while and everything, and he sort of like throws things off kilter and everything. And I also just love the visual joke of like the one guy that Michael Dougherty just keeps dumping his cases on. He's like, don't put it on my desk, don't put it on my desk. Damn it, I hate you.
The long tracking shot of, I know we keep bringing this up, but I do love that long tracking shot of like, oh, she's having sex with him in the car when the alien is possessing the sex worker or the stripper, and then like realizing that it's going a little too far, and you kind of go, it's like a cringe. And then
she starts laughing.
Yeah, she starts laughing, and then you start to see that she's really like, literally fucking him to death. It's
and then
hilarious.
Just opens the door and just pushes him out. You know,
it's so funny, and there's so many ways that scene, especially in the 80s, like it could have been really gross and like very voyeuristic in a certain way, but instead it understands like even that type of commentary in terms of what it's saying about gender. Like, it's not, if you just want to take it as a fun genre exercise, you can just read it as that, but like there's so much information with that shot without hitting you over the head about what it's getting at. It's still very much propelling the story and everything forward within the action.
And that's also a scene Shoulder talks about how like he went to see the movie like at a screen, and he was and I have to think that this is the scene he's talking about, where like he says he went to go see it with Martin Landau, he's worked with before on Alone in the Dark. He was like kind of put off by people laughing at unexpected moments in the movie, and he says and Landau told him it wasn't a bad laugh, they laughed because they were uncomfortable. He was right. A lot of times if the emotion is too big, it doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, this is what happens. That's one of those scenes where it is kind of funny and everything, but then it also goes maybe just like a little too, like the scene, the encounter goes too far, and you're like, oh, like it is like kind of like it's like you're like not sure, or I'm sitting there watching thinking, do I laugh? Am I a little uncomfortable? Well, I guess I'm like a little bit of both and everything, because it is just like one of those scenes, especially because like, well, then it is like treated as a joke and anything where people are like, why are his pants down? It's like, what do you think? And everything, like when they're at the crime scene afterwards.
The characters are all sincere though. I mean, everybody, nobody is winking at the camera. All the characters are playing it straight. It's especially Kyle MacLachlan is, and that's the type of performance where you can see if it was made today, it would be really snarky and like, you could see it being that way. But the drama is all very real for the characters, as heightened as the action and all the, grotesque spectacles are, so.
Yeah. I mean, MacLachlan, you're right. Like him playing it so sincerely. I mean, just like his physical performance is so funny. Like when he's drinking at the table, he's not just like drunk in like terms of his speech or anything, but the way he's like drinking the beer bottle, it's like he almost can't get his mouth to fit on the end of the bottle. It's just such a funny fucking choice.
He's like, do I wrap my whole mouth around the end of this? Like he's like he's calculating it mechanically, right? He's like maybe, and it's funny too because he's drinking it out of a bottle and his partner, for all intents and purposes, is
noticed
drinking
that
it out of a
too.
glass, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's this weird thing of he's just like, he seems, I mean, maybe that's where my joke of the Kyle MacLachlan stacked on top of each other kind of came from, maybe, because it's, his whole energy, the way he moves his whole body, he just feels like he's in like a suit that's too big for him, kind of.
Yeah.
Like he's David Byrne. Yeah.
Yes.
A little, yeah. He's like an alien in a David Byrne suit.
I will say that the Alka-Seltzer bit is just so fucking funny, and then it gives him the the Tylenol at the crime scene, and
Aspirin,
he puts it in the glass too, and then he's just like, the glass is empty. He's like,
And then later in the shot, later in another shot, you see him, he's drinking the glass, and he's like tapping the bottom of the glass as if like, I want to get every drop of water. Yeah. It's so
But
funny.
even the pathos of his character, like, and it's not like this is a film you get very emotionally attached to these characters, but like, even Kyle MacLachlan just provides just the right amount of like, pathos and melancholy for
you're kind of like, good for you, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
and Nuri gets it too at the end when he realizes that his friends are now like susceptible to being taken over by the ill, and he's like, Willis, my friend, and then MacLachlan's like, I'm sorry.
Well,
and
I am glad he asked the question, because there is, I do think what sort of gets lost, specifically almost in the stripper sequence, kind of, because it is kind of zany and like insane and fun, right? But you do kind of like forget, you're like, oh, like she's dead now, though, right?
Yeah. Like he talks to the friend and who's really distraught.
Yeah. Like he, and you know, when the lieutenant after his great actor of a dog, who again, the dog, like you watch the dog and you're like, yo, that dog's really crazy, but then you're like, no, wait, the dog is dead now. Though, right? It's like, and it's sort of this weird thing, and I do think that moment in the police station is really nice in that regard, because like he stops to ask the question. He's like, so that's the lieutenant, but it's not the lieutenant. Like, is he dead? And MacLachlan's like, oh yeah, like yeah, buddy, like it's done. And so it is kind of this interesting moment where you're like, oh right, like I kind of forgot. Like
yeah.
And setup and payoff too, and everything. Like when they break up the flamethrower in the first act and everything, and like it gets used in the best way in the climax. And everything. It's just like, I've seen movies that like they try to do that stuff, and it's like, man, like, and they sometimes like whiff the payoff and everything. And this movie just gets it just right. Like, I knew it was coming, and I still laughed like just as hard as I did the first time.
It's a perfect moment, because it's just like. That's part of the thing. You know, it has big video game energy, I feel like, in that moment.
I was just thinking about how you mentioning that, where they literally pull weapons out of thin air at one point. One character just has a bazooka or something. And you're like, where the fuck did that come from? But it's too cool for you to care.
And the slapstick quality, too, to that, where, like, it is, like, a violent movie with, like, people getting, like, shot with, like, all these bloody squibs, which look great and everything. But, like,
one of
when
whom
he
is
shoots
Danny
the lieutenant...
Trejo.
Yeah.
For
that's so funny, and he improv that line according to shoulder.
Yeah, Kevin messaged us in the group chat like 3-second Danny Trejo cameo. What the fuck?
Yeah. No, what kind of hippie are you?
Yeah, and you're right about the video game energy, where that's what a boss battle also feels like when you're just
that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, it's this really. And just the way that it escalates, you're kind of like, certainly not by accident. And this is, again, maybe where you could start to read the commentary in it. But it's like covering its bases in terms of like the pockets of society or institution that it's like working its way through, right? Mm-hmm. Like whether it's like the car dealership and like wealthy, rich, shitty people, right? Or the sex work industry in general. And then how we, you know, like, I don't know. It's like that stuff's, like I said, it's all there, just window dressing to a degree. And so it's interesting where the movie ultimately lines up, where like, as if MacLachlan to the movie is like, enough. Like we've like it just escalates to this like place of, you know, national power, so to speak, that he can't really help himself. It kind of reminded me of the, what's the fake, is it The Simpsons, where like there's like a fake Mel Gibson movie? Yeah, the dog's the Swifty eyes, and he stabs someone with an American flag. Yeah. That's the energy that I felt in the scene, in the press conference scene, kind of, where MacLachlan pulls out the flamethrower. Like it just has that exact energy to it.
That's true. Yeah.
And it's truly incredible. My wife and I were watching it, and we were just kind of like, what would you do? Like, You're like if I saw that, right, and then it's immediately followed by everybody seeing our bug friend pop out of a mouth, like I think I would just believe in everything I've ever heard about at that point, kind of, like if people are like, well, there are lizard people controlling the government, I'd be like, yeah, maybe, fucking probably.
I just kind of like that this movie doesn't even bother with them trying to be like, this person's insane, like get him to a psych ward or something. Like it's just
right.
Once people see it, they believe it, which I don't mean to get too far ahead, but there's even some ambiguity towards Lin Shaye's supporting character of like
just about to bring that up.
In the closet, like she sees what we assume is the transferal. So like, but she doesn't say anything, and she's horrified.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
There is something about, but again, I think the movie does just enough that's chilling enough to just have that shot of her in the closet saying she potentially saw this. She probably did. And then Kevin's kind of going, I don't know.
Well, I'm just like,
cool
I mean, that's the cool part about it. It's just like she does, but who knows? And you're catching her when she's leaving, so she doesn't really like, and also just like, she doesn't know anything that's going on. How does she begin to be like, oh, thank God you found me? So big slug just went into this guy's mouth. I don't know what that's about, but we got a press conference to go to, and that's a whole thing too.
I mean, it even made me think a little bit about the one character in Alone in the Dark who says, I feel like I'm, seeing things again, basically. Like, and then that's never really like brought up again. It's actually towards the end of the movie, but it's kind of a line one character dropped, and then they don't even get into that either. It kind of made me think of how like little spare breadcrumbs like that are like, oh, you're hinting at something a little more sinister.
Kevin, you had mentioned there was a rewrite at one point.
Mostly, I don't know about rewrite, but I think it was more so, I think Shoulder was like, just doing directorial shit where he took the script and was doing stuff to it, and that may have made the writer be like, I don't want my name on it.
Interesting.
Plus he wasn't able to direct it, so he didn't want his name on it either.
Right. I would just be curious to know if like the ending was meant to be more
I think he said in the commentary that was one thing that I didn't mess with like at all.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Because in the commentary he even like spells out, he's like, this is exactly what the ending is, so that there's no misinterpreting it. And I was like,
because it does seem like I feel like an easy layup for the ending, other than the insane route that they go, right, is you just end it in a Manchurian Candidate-esque fashion almost, where you just have, you're like, oh, it's like an X-Files episode or something, right? Like you could see like a more kind of like, whoa, like sinister ending to the movie than the route that the movie goes. Because it almost
like disturbing behavior or something.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Like, yeah. And so it's
sucks.
I'm trying not to get into specifics because it's something that everybody should watch. But the route that they go is far more violent and insane in a way that almost feels like a writing choice being undone in a rewrite, where they're like, well, no, we're just going to do this instead so we can get here. Because that to me would explain the senator's aide in the closet thing. Literally in the closet, not, figuratively, but
I mean, us talking about this, I haven't thought about this movie in so long, but I'm just thinking about it because it's a bad example of this. But does anyone here seen the 2006 remake of The Omen?
No.
Yes.
Okay,
the Lee Schreiber.
I think I'm gonna. Okay.
Julia Stiles.
I hope it's okay. Is it okay if I spoil the 2006
No,
ending?
I think you're
okay,
fine.
so like
a movie that they made so they could just release a movie on
666.
June 6th, 2006.
Where I remember being in high school and everyone was like, "We're gonna go see The Omen today," and then no one gave a shit after that. It only existed for that random Tuesday or whatever the fuck that movie came out. But at the end of that movie, it's basically a shot-for-shot remake of The Omen with a few exceptions. But at the end of that movie, Damien gets adopted by the president.
Well, so am I wrong in thinking in the original franchise of The Omen, doesn't he ultimately become president?
Oh, right. I've only seen the original Omen, but I just remember being a teenager.
I could be wrong. I believe Sam Neill plays him in the later sequels.
It's just so funny, though. It's just this random family, and then it's just like, this poor boy, what are we going to do with him? And then from the remake logic to be like, well, let's have the president adopt him.
You know how the president just does that?
The president just adopts random orphans who have their entire family.
Now, Mr. President, we have something to tell you about this child. No, it's fine. I'll take it.
Feels like the setup for a fucking like Eddie Murphy comedy or something like that.
With regards to this whole Lin Shaye, does she know? Like, is she cool with like just having this evil alien be the president?
Wouldn't be that different, am I right?
Hey. Well, I think that's like Callum Marsh, Canadian writer on Letterboxd, wrote about this movie back in 2019. He said about the alien. He's a walking satiric example of the ideal American consumer, so much the kid in the candy store that the candy store is even on his running list of robberies. That's a great joke in the movie. Yeah. His greatest aspiration, public office, only the logical end of his voracious materialism. I want to be president. So I think that is like the movie where it's like, yeah, I don't know, this guy, like, he's able to stay hidden and fit in because, like, I don't know, he's not his worst attitudes are not like that different than the worst attitudes of like a terrible American.
You mean a man who lives in Hollywood, has a voracious appetite, and wants to become president in the 80s? Who did that? I don't know. Wow.
I know. I was thinking we did literally watch an insurrection happen on live television, and now that
that's kind of. I guess
wait, what?
Maybe president again. So
maybe that. Oh, that wasn't even. I was talking about Reagan, to be clear.
I mean, Trump was prevalent in the 80s too.
Yeah.
The insurrection was just a mass aliens being vomited up into another person's mouth just over and over.
Like, this is the thing. I guess that's my point about, like, I would just believe it if I saw, like, if I saw that happen on TV, I would just kind of be like, I guess. But I think my brain would just go further. Like, I'd be like, okay, so aliens, and I guess God. Like, I would just start believing everything. I'd be like, oh, I guess everything I've ever heard about anything is true. Like, because it's like truly an insane news day. Like,
yeah, it's.
Yeah, like mass shootout at the police station, multiple homicides throughout the week,
right.
And then like a flamethrower
stolen jukebox from a fucking music store. There's that.
The music store scene is insane.
That guy, by the way,
I do not understand. So he gets an alien into him, and he's just like, "Oh, look at this new body. I'm gonna go steal some cassettes."
But he's got kind of banging taste in music, like I said. It's like a good little mixtape he's got going on there. I have a sneaking suspicion that the guy who ran the music store and the guy who played the car dealer, like car salesman, were supposed to swap roles. Because, like, the guy who's in the music store just has, like, big used car salesman energy.
I will say that the fucking shot where, I mean, probably the other, there's like two really, really funny fucking scenes where it's the entire car dealership thing where it's just like, I want this car, and they're just like, cool, man.
I want this car.
It's just like, where are the keys?
I like that it doesn't make you feel too bad about those guys too, that they just go back and they start snorting lines of coke in the office.
the cut to them just, and I was just like, holy shit.
Cut. It's like an oral, like sort of match cut. Yeah, it's so
and they're
good.
getting cocaine out of a little miniature, like little Corvette car. That's just very funny. You know how people do cocaine.
I have a question. Who of the various performers who play the alien, who do you think is the best iteration? I think it's the second guy. The second guy is my favorite. Like the way he's running after the Ferrari in the street, clutching his chest, and like then like gradually limping along, like because he has like he's had like triple bypass, so his body is shit. And he's like still like determined to get that car.
The most Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black energy for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
He definitely seems the hardest at disguising. Like, he's having the hardest time in that body disguising that he's a slug alien, I think.
I mean, it's also like I find like shitty ways of like covering up your wounds to be just like a funny bit. Like he like the the sort of like body parts are like bursting out of his veins, so he covers it up with like scotch tape and everything. I mean, there's an episode in, I think in Barry season 2 where like Bill Hader gets stabbed and like his handler gets him like crazy glue to cover up the wound and everything. So like I just find like shitty makeshift like medical devices very funny.
I weirdly thought of Green Room where Anton Yelkin just like duct tapes his arm.
He tapes it up too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that one's far more grim and upsetting. But
you know what's funny? I have never gone back and rewatched that movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
But I've never gone back and rewatched it because I don't want to re-experience that scene.
It's yeah. And what's funny is the violence in that happens off screen. It's just the aftermath that's so upsetting. Like that one.
I mean you do see
lot...
Imogen Poots carve up a man's chest.
No, I'm just talking about that one
his
moment.
shotgun
Even the X-Acto knife. Yeah, that bit. Ugh. Also, just that scene of him taping his arm up and him being at the bar. I was just thinking, God, if you only had if you were like one of those that guy actors where you had to be like you only had a couple lines, it would be the most fun to be like, yo buddy, are you mentally ill or something?
Jack McGee, the ultimate that guy.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because that guy pops up everywhere, right?
Yeah.
He's Mark Wahlberg's dad, I think, in The Fighter, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I will say William Boyett is the actor, I think, who plays the second iteration of the alien, which is my favorite. Really quickly, what are all your favorites?
I'm going with him probably too. Either that or the stripper. Just because I was just like,
Claudia
oh
Christian,
shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that we could go, to this place. And then when the dog, what am I talking about? The dog. What? No, yeah.
The dog's great.
The dog's great. When that happened, yeah. I was just hooting and hollering like it was that was awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite. The dog.
Yeah, I think I gotta, the dog is great. But I do think I have to go Claudia Christian, because that whole run of the movie and that whole sequence, you're like, oh yeah, this thing is really just firing on all cylinders. Like,
yeah. What I like, they don't. It's not like the alien possesses her either, and she has like a total makeover either. She's just like her performance just changes. Like her
very steely,
yeah, very steely. Yeah. Her with those. What is it? A shotgun? What does she have? It's just so it's
like a pump action shotgun.
Oh my god, it's so badass. And then I do think that the most dramatically compelling, like the stakes are raising moment is when they, Kyle MacLachlan first pulls out it's the first time you see him pull out that weapon that can kill the alien, and that scene where she's like, I'm not coming out yet is actually
she's
amazing.
So good. She has this kind of guttural move that she does.
Yeah.
Where you're like, is that thing gonna pop out of her fucking
Shoulder
mouth?
said that was her idea to be like, I could throw up this thing at any given moment. And I was like, that is perfect.
Great. It's a great choice.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we could talk about this movie for 3 hours. So
I just want to shout. Roy the dog is the dog's name, by the way.
Hell yeah,
Roy the dog.
Thank you.
Was Roy in anything else?
Let's get 2 seconds. You keep going.
What's Roy the dog's top 4 on Letterboxd? Let's see.
Do you also think I forget her name? It's not Applegate, because I'm thinking Christina Applegate, but the author of Animorphs saw this movie, because I did think of Animorphs while watching this. It's kind of the same thing. Not as gross. They go in your ear canal as opposed to your mouth, but
okay. But now I need an Animorphs cover where it's the triple bypass guy, the stripper, and then it just turns into a dog.
Well, so sorry. Roy the dog is the character's name. Jake,
my bad,
is the dog's name.
Jake.
Jake is known for A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master.
We will have to be. We will be covering that, so we gotta look out for Jake.
Texasville.
Wow, I need to watch
the
that.
Last Picture Show.
Man, good movie.
I need to watch that.
It just came out on Criterion.
The director's cut just came out on Criterion, and I watched it when we did our Peter Bogdanovich episode. That's a good movie, and you know who's great in it? Jake.
Hell yeah. Charlie Catherine Applegate.
Okay. Wow, I wasn't too far up. I was like, it's not Christina. Jesus.
You were close.
I was like, I think it starts with a C, but it's not Christina Applegate.
I think she was her author name was K.A. Applegate. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anyways, any other final thoughts on Animorphs when we went to the Scholastic Book Fair and shit? And, we were getting those. And
which Iceman was in Animorphs? Were they both in Animorphs?
That was Sean Ashmore. I had a big old crush on him.
And then Aaron was his brother?
Yes, I
Right.
think.
They were both actors, though, right?
I think so,
'Cause
but
they were-
Sean
I think
was
still
bigger. Sean was the bigger actor because he was in X-Men and
But he was
The
also the one in
Ruins.
Animorphs.
Yes.
Not his twin brother.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's also one of those things where you watch that show as a kid and you think it's the most intense thing, and then you look it up on YouTube and you're like, "This is the cheesiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life."
That's me with I've downloaded, what is it, Crybaby Lane, that what was the Nickelodeon scary show? What was
Are
it
You
called?
Afraid
So
of the
You're
Dark?
Afraid of the Dark?
Are you Crybaby Lane is what you...
Yeah.
That's what you...
No, that was like a one where it's just like they showed that once and like they got complaints from kids that it was too damn scary, and I can't wait to rewatch that and be like,
I
what the
see.
fuck is this? This is like
Yeah.
as scary as Halloween Town. What is this?
Yeah, I've rewatched some of Are You Afraid of the Dark, which I was too, like, I saw scattershot episodes as a kid and like hid behind the couch at like friends' houses because of that show, and rewatching it now, you're like, oh, this is adorable.
Yeah, it's like watching Goosebumps. Yeah.
Babyface Jay Baruchel.
Yeah.
I know he guested on it at one point.
Yeah. Didn't Ryan Gosling have an episode on that show?
Sounds
I
about
believe he
right.
did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
I believe...
Okay, I'm
Tia and
conflating
Tamara
the
Mallory
intro
did.
of Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, because Goosebumps has the intro with the dog with the eyes that change, right?
Correct.
And
Yes.
Are You Afraid,
of the Dark has the swing. Yes.
The swing,
Fuck
and the
that
match,
swing.
and the,
I think
the intro is
doll
the intro.
wall.
The eerie intro is like seared into my brain of that.
Uh-huh.
Well, because I'm thinking of dun 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 dun, and that's
Yeah.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, that's
yes.
Goosebumps.
correct.
Speaking of music, I want to shout out the score in The Hidden, which is awesome.
It's pretty
just like every
badass.
time, like the sort of keyboard riff, it goes like dum 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 dum, like when it's like speeding up, especially
Very
when the movie through the
Terminator.
mannequin warehouse. Oh, just jacks me up every time.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
There's another funny scene where it's I think it's after the car crashes into the mannequin spot, and Con McLaughlin is like, I'm going in, and my manager's just like, good, I'll cover you. And he's like, I'd appreciate it if you didn't. He's like, all right, fine, I won't cover you. I'd like you to cover me. He's like, all right, I guess I'll cover you.
I'm gonna fucking cover you or not. Irritable Michael Dury is very funny.
Yeah.
in this. Like that's like those moments are very good. And Michael Convertino is the composer who I wanted to shout out. So glad I shouted him out. Yeah.
All right, final thoughts on The Hidden.
Everyone should watch it.
Yeah. It's like it's funny, it's exciting, it's cleanly shot and edited. I mean, you see Shoulders like, feeling for pace, like in his background as an editor, is like really shines through here. It's got like a little, like we said, it's got a little bit of like political commentary to it. If you want to look for that, and I think that's pretty sharp as on that. And there is like just enough of an emotional core that makes you care about the characters without like detracting from the humor and the excitement of the whole thing. I think this is like, to me, the ideal of like a mainstream like genre film. Like if every action movie was as well made and acted and written and cut together as this one is, like I would be a happy man. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, what's even wild is this movie debuted at number 6. So it's like not even, this wasn't even like, yeah. It's not even like this was like The Fugitive where it was like huge and then got Oscars and blah, blah, blah. It's just like this debuted at number 6. And the next week it went to number 9. And then after that it was like 25th. So
we didn't know what we had.
No.
We didn't know what we had.
We were too fucking busy watching Flashdance, and that's why we fucked up as a society.
4 years later, still hooked on it.
Still hooked on it. What a feeling. No, thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at Kev Bonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at J Doyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CT Nash91. Once again, thank you for listening.